Well, howdy! Today, I'd like to talk about one monster in particular in Monster Hunter World, Anjanath. Now, I'm no expert in game design, but I feel Anjanath is not only my favorite monster, but in regards to it being the perfect first boss in a game like Monster Hunter. Now, and how Monster Hunter World prepares you for it is also just really cool. Monster Hunter World starts you off by facing some smaller monsters, and each of them prepares you for the fight against Anjanath. Except Great Jagras, because let's face facts, he is literally just fodder. Now, for this playthrough, I am using a heavy bowgun, except for I will be using the Hunter's Knife for one scene in particular coming up here. Otherwise, that's why I'm using the Hunter's Bowgun and why I'm wearing this armor. It's a New Game Plus run. Just a little heads up there. First comes Kuliaku, who allows you to get used to a faster opponent and lets you deal with rejection thanks to his best friend, the Rock. Now, Kuliaku is a pretty easy monster all in all, but he is also a good example of teaching you through visuals rather than just teaching you. Now, once you're done abusing this poor boy, you'll move on to your next target, a flying wyvern.
Select Astera from the world map so we can go home.
Then comes Puki Puki, or Puke Puke, who teaches you a bit about verticality, but he also teaches you about status effects, which are a really important thing to understand in a game like Monster Hunter, where you're going to get inflicted with them a lot if you are not careful. Puke Puke also is one of the few monsters in the early game with an enrage mechanic. This becomes a lot more prevalent as the game progresses.
Jumpin' Jaggies! A Rathian! You know what this means, my friend.
Of course, you will have a run-in with some green terror, the queen of the forest herself, Rathian. But that's just a distraction during the story mission. You'll actually end up coming upon your real opponent soon after. Now, Baroth is like Anjanath. He's a brute wyvern. He's designed to be tough, and he's able to dish out a lot of damage if you allow him. That, of course, means if you get hit, which early on, if you are very new to this franchise and new to this style of gameplay, it's very likely. Even if you aren't new, you are very likely to get caught off guard. But like I said, he teaches you about brute wyverns very effectively. After that, you will either be abused or abuse an electric squirrel. There is no in between. I think you also fight a fish somewhere along the lines, but I don't think anybody remembers that fight at all. Now, after all of that, you will meet the monster you've been told to avoid consistently during your expeditions by your handler. She just doesn't think you're ready for it, and you might not be. And that, of course, is Anjanath. Now, Anjanath will take everything you've learned from these past few fights and put it all together. He will burn you by thus inflicting a status effect. And of course, he'll teach you that looks are quite deceiving. That for such a large monster, he's quite quick on his feet and can catch up to you. And he'll also teach you, like Rathian, that even at range, you are not necessarily safe, as he has ranged flare attacks. He even has a grab move, which I believe might be the first one you end up seeing in the game at this point. And yeah, I got hit by it a fair few times more than I care to admit. And it's likely in your first attempt, you will get beat. But that's fine, because that's the process of learning this monster. And if you're a veteran of the franchise, or even of the game, well, he might not be all that difficult for you. But even then, he can still cause you some trouble. all in all, once you get him beaten, it is probably the most satisfying feeling you can ever get. As it shows that you've learned from all of your experiences and that you are ready to handle what the rest of this game has to offer. And he also ends up preparing you as well for much more dangerous threats that await you. Except for a certain giant pickle. I don't think anything prepares anybody for that thing. And that's why I think Anjanath is my personal favorite monster in this game, especially when it comes down to early monsters. Not just because he's a giant T-Rex that breathes fire. Because, I mean, seriously, who can actually hate that? But because he is an example of a first boss in a game that realistically is all boss fights that teaches you the ropes. And honestly, I really appreciate that the Monster Hunter World devs took the time to prepare you for this. I may hate the unskippable cutscenes on a second playthrough, but I'll be damned if this is not one of my favorite monster fights in the game. I mean, there's others later, but let's face facts. It only goes up from here. Well, thank you for watching. I'm Miss Caduceus, and this has been the Genius of Anjanath.